Nobody knows. But right now, the paper still controls the physical price. But you can tell by looking at the price action over the last 3 or 4 months that that's starting to slip a bit. But like I said, this is the slowly part. It's when the suddenly happens that who knows what's going to happen then and what the powers that be are going to do.
So who are these market participants? Obviously, we can't know exactly. Is this sovereign nations, in your opinion, standing for delivery when it comes to gold? Um, what are the forces? Who are the forces behind this? This is obviously a topic of some contention, but in your opinion, who are these big players who are moving these massive amounts of precious metals?
Okay, well, if you look at who the issuers and stoppers were in February, which is the last big delivery month for gold, it was all of the big bullion banks. JP Morgan, Citigroup, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Standard Chartered, you, PNB Paribas, the French bank, Bank of Montreal in Canada, Scotiabank, every Wells Fargo, B of A, the whole 9 yards. They were issuing from their house accounts and stopping for their house accounts and for clients. There was absolutely gargantuan amounts of silver. So these are the big players, the heavy hitters, the central banks, the bullion banks, which it looks like one giant book squaring operation, which has been going on now, for not just in February, but before that as well. This isn't ma and pop people buying gold and silver and moving it around. These are the really big players with, tens of billions of dollars to spend. And, it's a rush from paper. What they're doing is, they're doing what we've been telling, everybody to do, in the retail space is just hold the physical metal in your hand. And finally, the big boys, the big players in Europe and Britain and North America have gotten the game too. And we're seeing the results of that, not just in February, but what's going on right now in March and in January as well. This is this is huge, and we're seeing a gargantuan shift, and we're in the middle of it right now. And some people have brought up the fact that the BIS has got some sort of new rules coming in regarding derivatives in gold, allocated versus unallocated, and there's also talk that they're topping up Fort Knox from all the gold that's been shipped out of there, which I find very easy to believe. But these are the big boys, the heavy hitters, and the big with the deep pockets that are moving this gold around, and it's so big it's a standout feature right now.
So when it comes to paper manipulation of both the gold and silver markets, these have obviously been very much front and center, at least when it comes to people who are interested in the precious metals space, people wondering when this manipulation is going to end. It seems that the end is always around the corner, depending on who you speak to. These are obviously very big moves. If we take a step back and just look at the overall picture, how do you see this all playing out for the paper market and that manipulation? Do you think we're getting close? You said we're getting close to the wall breaking. Is this something that is imminent, or is it inevitable, but it could take a lot longer than people think?
That famous quote by Hemingway, how does bankruptcy occur? Slowly at first and then suddenly. Well, the slowly at first has picked up enormously in the last couple of months, and the suddenly is just around the corner. But like you said, this has been imminent for a very long time. But this big rush for gold in the last 2 or 3 months, they can't hide their tracks forever. And sooner or later, all manipulations end. And in gold, this has been going on since the first trading day of January in 1975. So that's 50 plus years ago when they first came up with the COMEX futures market in gold. So, this has been going on for 50 plus years. So when they started this thing, to suppress the physical market with paper, they thought it was a wonderful idea, but they never thought, down the road sometime when the fiat currency system was about to fail, how were they actually going to get out of this thing? That was never in their mind. They were only thinking about the here and now. And here we are looking at a brick wall in silver and also in platinum and palladium, and I would suspect that it's there in gold as well. So we're seeing this brick wall coming up. And how long this is going to last, I don't know. One thing I am watching very carefully is the big four shorts in gold, the big four commercial traders in gold in the short positions. And for the last 6 weeks in a row, they've been reducing it substantially. And but other than that, if you just step back from the big four shorts in gold, there's just no sign of it whatsoever that the paper market is giving up on suppressing the prices. You know, the bank participation report came out last weekend, and something I follow religiously. I've been doing for like 15 years. And what it shows is the positions of the U.S. and non-U.S. banks in the in the COMEX futures market. Now, the non-U.S. banks have decreased their short position in gold by a bit, but it's the European banks. They've increased their short positions in gold by two and a half times. They have the largest short position in gold they've ever held, and in silver they increased it by 56% over the last 2 months. And it's just unbelievable to watch this. So they're suppressing the price, and there's no sign whatsoever, like I said, in the paper market, that this is going to come to an end. And as Ted Butler, rest in peace, Ted, said, the COMEX and the LME, the paper markets, are there for one purpose and one purpose only: A, to keep the price suppressed, and to protect the shorts. Now, you remember a couple of years ago there was a blow up in the LME nickel market, and the LME, they had to step in solely to protect the shorts. So anybody that was long, betting the price was going to go up on the fundamentals, they got screwed out of their profits, pure and simple. So when this thing comes to an end on the LBMA in London and the COMEX futures market in New York, who knows what they're going to do when that happens, and all of a sudden they're faced with a failure to deliver or something like that, where all of a sudden they're out of something and the demand is so high they got nothing to deliver. What are they going to do? Okay, are they going to sit on their hands and let free market forces take over? Are they going to pull another LME in like they did in the LME and nickel? Nobody knows. But right now, the paper still controls the physical price. But you can tell by looking at the price action over the last 3 or 4 months that that's starting to slip a bit. But like I said, this is the slowly part. It's when the suddenly happens that who knows what's going to happen then and what the powers that be are going to do.
You mentioned Fort Knox a little bit earlier. I have to get your take. Obviously, this is been in the news recently, and it's a kind of a good thing in that it's allowed gold to enter the mainstream consciousness a little bit, with the talk of auditing Fort Knox, and then also the talk of potentially revaluing the U.S. gold reserves, marking them to market, or some people say even valuing them at $10,000 an ounce or a much higher number. What are your thoughts on both of those topics? Firstly, the Fort Knox audit. Obviously, the U.S. is storing gold supposedly not only in Fort Knox, other locations as well. Is it even practical to do an audit, and would anybody even believe it if they did? And secondly, do you think it's a realistic proposition to revalue the gold on the Fed's balance sheet? And if that were to occur, does that accomplish anything?
Okay, first of all, it's at Fort Knox, West Point, and I think there's some at Denver. So that's where almost all of the gold reserves are. Doing a physical audit on all the gold would be like a hugely long time consuming and expensive proposition. And I think that, everybody doesn't believe all the gold is there. And I'm one of them. I would suggest they say they 8,133 tons or something like that. I would bet that it's A, not all there, and B, what's even more important, they don't even have to audit Fort Knox. All they have to do is go down there and say, okay, fine, that's all very pretty. Now, how much paper is written on this? How much of this is encumbered? How much of it is swapped out, leased out, okay, or some way encumbered that really doesn't belong to us? And if we asked for it back, it wouldn't be there from the counterparty that has leased it. That's the big $100 billion question right there. So that, I would save the audit and just go down there and find out how much paper's been written against it. And I think that one of the things that they would find immediately is that the American gold is certainly encumbered in some way or another. And that's all it would take to drive the price to the moon, knowing that, regardless of whether all the 8,000 tons is there or not.
And then when it comes to potentially revaluing the U.S. gold, do you think that's a realistic proposition? And would it even fix anything? You know, people are saying they can use it to offset debt and deficits on the balance sheet. But I mean, even if that amount of gold was there and you marked it to market, it's kind of a drop in the bucket, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And they'd have to mark it up to like 10 times 10 times the price it is today to really make a dent in it. Is that practical? Who knows? But I can tell you one thing is that it would melt down the financial system if it did. And see, the problem is when you have a scheme like this to suppress everything, not just gold, silver, and platinum and palladium, but all commodity prices in general. This has been going on for 2.5, 3 generations. And to unleash it all on the world all at once, even if they mark to market, the current price, people would assume that it's going to go even higher than that. This thing is going to be a bloody mess when it finally does go. And so whether they market to $30,000 an ounce or 3,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, this is going to be a seismic shift in the world's financial system. It's just impossible to imagine how this is all going to turn out. Would it be useful to revalue it? I suppose, but then the side effects in the financial system and monetary system would be a mega earthquake, a 9+ earthquake. So, are they going to risk it? I don't know. It's all pure speculation.
I wonder if you have any thoughts on silver's use in military applications. I've spoken to a few people who point this out, Andy Sheckman being one of them, David Morgan being another, that silver's use in military applications is actually not really tracked, and it could be a very large number. And if you really go down the rabbit hole, could be part of the reason why paper manipulation is going on and why the powers that be want to keep the price where it is. Have you looked into that at all, and do you have any thoughts?
No, this is an area I watch other people talk about, but I don't follow myself. I just don't have time to follow everything. I look at the amount of silver that's withdrawn. Like you take a company like Toyota or Tesla or you pick a company that's used like tens of millions of ounces of silver a year. You never see that go through the exchanges. All of that comes through. With dealing directly with the refineries. They have a contract with the refineries with X amount of silver. So you just don't know. And because most of it is speculation, and I'm not disagreeing with what anybody says, but the fact of the matter is it is speculation no matter who's saying it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just hopping back to the gold question when it comes to Fort Knox, conversely, do you think China is understating their gold reserves?
Oh, yeah. Well, I've been of the opinion for a long time, as has Alistair McLeod, that their reserves are actually north of 20,000 tons. And I'm on record saying that years and years ago, and so is Alistair.
Interesting. And what strategic advantage does that give the Chinese in terms of having this massive gold supply? They've also supposedly discovered this huge gold deposit as well. They mine a huge amount of gold. They import a huge amount of gold. What eventuality are they preparing for? Is this just about taking their wealth outside of counterparty risk, especially, they've been doing this for a long time, but especially once, Russia's FX reserves were seized, it became very important for nations to have an asset that's free of counterparty risk. A reason many speculate that central banks have been buying gold in massive numbers. When it comes to the Chinese in particular, what are their reasons for having so much gold? Are they preparing for a monetary reset? Because they're also encouraging their citizens to stack gold as well. And some would say, I think Alistair might have actually pointed this out when I spoke to him, that the Chinese citizens' gold kind of by proxy can become the government's gold in a moment's notice in that country.
Well, on the latter question, I suppose that's possible because, I'm sure the Chinese know where every ounce of gold, the government knows where every ounce of gold is and who owns it. But on the matter of why China is accumulating so much, there's the old adage, the old saying that the golden rule, he who has the gold makes the rules. And China has been a great power for thousands of years, okay? And they've looked at the British Empire and the Portuguese and the German and the Mongols and now the American Empire, which is on its last legs. And guess they're the rising superpower in the world. They're already surpassed the United States as far as I'm concerned. And they're going to be the next global superpower. And when they finally do decide to get around to disclosing what their true gold reserves, then the economic, financial, and monetary power of the world will shift automatically to Shanghai. And they're doing that in preparation for that, plus all the other things that you said, for monetary purposes. And, they know that there are $3 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries that they're sitting there. The Federal Reserve can turn them off at a moment's notice, just like they did for Russia. So, they're not, they may have been born at night, but it wasn't last night. And they're preparing for everything, and they're giving this gold to their citizens. And I think, like you said, you can be nefarious about it and think the government will actually seize the private citizens' gold. But what I think they're actually doing is they're allowing they're trying to save their own citizens by allowing them to own gold, so that when everything goes, south, that the citizens who have been smart enough to buy the stuff will actually be saved by that. Just like you and I are doing, everybody in North America and Europe, we're buying it to, as we watch currencies being debased and the purchasing power of the dollars go down, or whatever your currency is, we're buying it to protect ourselves from that. On a days like today and like yesterday, we're seeing that, gold and silver go up and our stock portfolios go up, and we're doing the smart thing. And as far as I'm concerned, being generous to the Chinese government, they're allowing their citizens to do the same thing for them that we're doing for ourselves.
You mentioned that the American empire is nearing its end. What are the signs you're seeing that lead you to believe that? And does Trump change anything? Because obviously we're now seeing almost a kind of return of a strongman sort of policy and a desire, it seems, to strengthen U.S. hegemony, which appeared to be weakening with the Biden administration. And prior to that, it seems like Trump is kind of trying to take the bull by the horns, tell the rest of the world how it's going to be, and put America first. Does him being in office change anything about the trajectory of where the American empire is headed? Is he going to make it worse? Does it really matter in the end? What are your thoughts?
Well, he's only been president for about a month, 6 weeks or whatever, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt for the time being. But, America's been in decline since 1971 when when Nixon took the U.S. off the gold exchange standard and it defaulted on its international obligations in gold. And, I'm 76 years old, and I've saw America when it was great, when in the 1950s and the 1960s when I was growing up. That's the America that everybody knows and loves and would like America to become again. But the U.S. has now become so corrupted under the fiat currency system that, I'm cheering on Elon and the Donald and all the people he's got, working for him to fix this mess. But, I just get the feeling that, it just cannot be saved. But, I wish them all the luck in the world, because everybody wants America to be the great and wonderful country it used to be. But, like I said, it's so corrupted and twisted, especially their financial and the monetary system, and they're so far in debt that they're just never going to get out of it. So, in the end, everybody can see it. Okay, especially the Chinese. They're preparing for it. Europe's going down the drain. Britain's going down the drain. And like I said, he who has the gold makes the rules, and it's going to be China.